Hey, good evening, ladies and gentle drunks. My name is Kevin Olson. I'm a recovered alcoholic. Wonderful to have you all here. I'd like to welcome you all to the fourth dimension. Big book study, that is. I'm glad I'm here. I know I'm glad you're here. I know I'm glad I'm here. I never feel more alive than when I'm sharing God's message of recovery in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous that I discovered in a book called Alcoholics Anonymous. And we're going to share that a little bit tonight. And let's have a good time. Let's have some fun. As this is the fourth dimension big book study, the first thing we'll start off with is the set aside prayer. And it goes a little something like this. Sing along if you know the words. God, please help me to set aside everything I think I know about you, about me, about my fellow man, and about the 12 steps. And please allow me to gain a fresh new vision, perspective, and understanding of what you, what me, what my fellow man, and the 12 steps are all about. Amen. And as this is the fourth dimension big book study, I always like to read the two parts of our book that refer to the fourth dimension. First of all, on page 8, Bill Wilson writes that I was soon to be catapulted into what I like to call the fourth dimension of existence. I was to know happiness, peace, and usefulness in a way of life that is incredibly more wonderful as time passes. And then on page 25, Bill Wilson writes that we have found much of heaven and we have been rocketed into a fourth dimension of existence of which we had not even dreamed. We're going to be catapulted. We're going to be rocketed. And for the sake of the tradition and custom of the fourth dimension big book study, would everyone who's willing to please put one hand up like this? And everybody please put another hand up like this. And everybody go, oh yeah. All right, guys, I'm glad you're here. Let's have some fun tonight. We are, I'm just opening a window. It's a little warm in here. We're on step 11 tonight, and beautiful step, and I'm sure we'll have a very beautiful meeting tonight. So we'll get into the book in a moment. I want to start with just a little bit of a refresher on step 10. So step 10, as you guys can see here, it tells us in the book that we look for 4 things and we do 4 things, okay? So we're going to look, and what the book says is continue to see where we are selfish, resentful, dishonest, or afraid. Those are the 4 things we look for, okay? When these crop up, not if they crop up, but when they crop up, we ask God at once to remove them. We talk to somebody about them. We make amends if we've harmed somebody. Then we resolutely turn our thoughts to helping others, okay? So we look for 4 things and we do for 4 things. If there's only one thing that you take away from the work that we did on step 10 last week, I'll suggest you make that it, okay? So we're on page 84, if you're wondering where I'm getting this from. Where it says, this thought brings us to step 10. About halfway down the page, it says, continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. Selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, fear. We look for 4 things. Those are the 4 things that we look for. When these crop up, we ask God at once to remove them. We discuss them with someone immediately. We make amends if we've harmed anyone. Then we resolutely turn our thoughts to someone we can help, okay? And if you think about it, man, that's really kind of the breakdown of the 12 steps. That's really kind of the entire crux of our program, okay? And, one of the things that I've learned about inventory is that if I'm going to stay sober and I'm going to enjoy any type of happy, contented sobriety in my life, I am going to inventory. Okay, there's no way around it. Last week we read through the 12 and 12, and we're going to dive into our 12 and 12 a little bit tonight as well. But the 12 and 12 under step 10 talks about the three places where the three different time aspects in terms of when we take inventory. The first is spot check inventory, which is like right now, today's emotions as I get tangled up. Right now in the moment, I know that I'm getting angry or that I'm getting afraid or whatever it is. And just even in that, man, like I talk about that in step 6 a lot. For me, there is so much freedom and so much power in just the awareness of what's going on. The ability just to pause. And Bill Wilson calls it getting tangled up. When I'm getting tangled up in today's emotions. Okay, so I'm getting tangled up. And I can feel myself starting to get uncomfortable. And I can feel myself starting to get agitated. And I know like I'm about ready to snap. Okay. And when I snap like that, or when I get an attack of emotionalism, I mean, just so you guys know, that's what we mean when we talk about untreated alcoholism and sobriety. When I lash out, when I have a fit of emotionalism like that, that's what my alcoholism looks like, man. And that's how like we harm people in AA. We harm, and not in AA, but I harm people in my life with the way that I respond, and the way that I react, and the way that I hurt people, and the way that I disrespect people. And it's all fueled by these defects of character. So when we talk about the spot check, it's right here, right now. And a big part of that is what Bill calls restraint of tongue and pen. Okay. Which means just don't say it. Just because I'm thinking it doesn't mean I have to say it. Okay. And just because I'm feeling it doesn't mean that I have to say it. Okay. I can restrain my tongue and my text message and my email and my Snapchat and my Facebook posts and my, all of that stuff, man. Okay. Nothing really valuable ever happened when I was in an elevated sense of emotion. Okay. Now look, one of the things that Clancy taught was that no matter how long I stay sober, no matter how many times I work the steps, no matter how spiritual I become, I never get to overcome just basic human emotion. Okay. I'm always going to have some sadness. I'm always going to have in life some anger. And the reason I mention this, guys, is because I thought that if I fell short, like God forbid, I became angry one day, I would beat myself up and think I'm not a good member of AA. I am failing in Alcoholics Anonymous because I'm angry. And that's not the deal. Okay. Every human being has anger. Every human being has sadness to some degree. Every human being has great joy and great excitement. Okay. All of that good stuff. But the reality is today, I don't have to respond and react as negatively and destructively as I have in the past. Okay. I heard Father Bill W. Who he teaches a lot about two-way prayer. I think I mentioned this the other day. The alcoholic, it's easy to spot an alcoholic in a family, whether they're drinking or not, because the alcoholic is the person in the family that everyone else has to walk around on tiptoes. So you don't agitate them. You don't set them off. And God knows that was me, man. That was me. My poor parents walking around like in a minefield around my little emotions. Okay. So spot check inventory, restraint of tongue and pen. Just don't say it. Okay. I just don't have to react, because one bad reaction, the 12 and 12 says, can ruin our relations with someone for a day, or maybe a whole year, or maybe a lifetime. Okay. I don't know about y'all, but there are things that I have said to people that are, and once I've said them, they're irreversible. You can't take that away. Okay. So I really encourage you to understand, and you'll see underneath that, I wrote MYOB-KYMS. When I was in treatment, one of the first things, oh, here, let me share this again. When I was in treatment, one of the counselors taught me that, and he taught me that because I said to him, I was a few months into the treatment center, sober, at least 2 months into this treatment center. And there was not a person left in the treatment center who wanted to have anything to do with me. And it wasn't because I was drinking or because I was stealing or lying or doing anything else like that. It's just because I had this reprehensible character where I knew everything and I had to throw my 2 cents into everything, and everything was my business, and I kept sticking my nose in where it didn't belong. And I went into the counselor's office and I said, how do I stop? What I asked him, the question I actually asked him was, how do I stop being such an asshole? How do I stop that? Because there's no one in this treatment center. Like, I didn't have a car, and there was not a person in that treatment center who would give me a ride to a meeting. No one wanted to have anything to do with me. Okay. And he said, well, he taught me this: MYOB, KYMS, mind your own business and keep your mouth shut. And I learned that restraining my tongue and pen and not having to throw my 2 cents into everything all the time was okay. It was okay to do that. It was okay to not know things. It was okay for me to say, I don't know the answer to that question. Man, I would make up answers just to try and impress you, just so you would like me, you know? There's a great line I want to share with you guys right now in terms of MYOB, KYMS. Mind your own business, keep your mouth shut. And the line is, nothing, like the word nothing, is often the right thing to do and is always a good thing to say. Okay? Nothing is often the right thing to do and always a good thing to say. Okay? So restraint of tongue and pen. Now, we're going to talk more about that tonight, because we're going to talk about step 11. We're going to talk about how that's related to step 11. And part of the reason I want to do this, review of step 10 is you'll see here at the beginning of step 11 in the 12 and 12, I'll show you where it talks about it. Bill Wilson talks about inventory, prayer, and meditation. Those three things taken separately do a lot of good value, but when they are logically interwoven, inventory and prayer and meditation all simultaneously together as part of the disciplines of my life, it creates what Bill Wilson calls an unshakable foundation for life. Okay. And I'm going to share with you guys tonight how the impact that meditation, mindfulness meditation, had on my ability to restrain my tongue and pen. Okay. The relative, I want to share this little tidbit. It's something that the Dalai Lama, I heard him talking about one time relative to emotions, that, we all have emotions in life. Okay. And what the Dalai Lama said, I'm going to do my best Dalai Lama impression for you right now. Okay. He said, sometimes in life we have great sorrow and tragedy, and we go through that. Very sad. And sometimes we have great joy and incredible things. And then what he said is, he went like this. He said, but always like this. No matter great sadness or great joy, always like this. Okay. And I don't know about you guys, but when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, I was not like this. Okay. I was like a human pinball machine inside. Okay. Like, I would take 2 steps and laugh. I would take 2 steps and cry, man. Okay. I remember when I moved into treatment, they said, what do you want to get out of treatment? I said, I want to be able to feel the same emotion for longer than 5 minutes. That's what I said. Okay. Because I was frantic. I was crazy. And that's untreated alcoholism. Okay. Was the problem, was drinking my problem? No. My problem was that when I got sober, I was like this. So then what do you think my solution to feeling like this when I was sober was? Drinking. I'm not a problem drinker, man. I'm a solution drinker. And I drank because that's the only solution I knew to help me with this. Okay. And there were times it was way down and suicidal. And then there were times where I was going to take over the world, and all that stuff. Bill Wilson talks about that, man. These power drives that Bill Wilson had, okay, coupled with suicidal depression. I get it, okay? And I'm not talking about bipolar. I'm talking about alcoholism. Okay, just being all over the place. My solution was to drink to deal with that. Okay, so that's spot check, inventory, and learning to be like this. I mean, that's essentially like I'm an alcoholic who's sober today, who's not drinking today. Why? Because I have found in AA what I was always looking for in a bottle. I have found in AA a way to feel easy and comfortable and sober at the same time. And when I get out of line, I have a spiritual toolkit that we've been teaching together in this book for the last few weeks, the spiritual toolkit that we use that brings me back to this. Okay. I'm not always like this, guys. Believe me, anyone who spends any time around me, okay, knows. Okay. I get fear, man, for sure. I get angry. Oh my God. I think I shared this the other day. Like the city of Calgary decided they're going to shut down the parkade in front of my building. I wasn't going to be able to get in and out of my building for like 2 days. It was not one of my finest moments. Okay. I took it out on the concierge at my building. It was an embarrassment. And so okay, so what do? I made amends to him. Okay, certainly I went down. Have you guys ever had this experience too, where you're like in the middle of like an emotional outburst with someone, and then you live this way of life, so like I'm going to have to be making amends for what I'm doing right now, like as it's still pouring out of my mouth. Man, I've been there. Okay. And so we clean that up. But I just want you guys to know, like, I'm a human being. We're all human beings. We suffer from these emotions. I suffer from emotions that make life difficult. That is alcoholism. Okay. I suffer from emotions that make life difficult. And what Alcoholics Anonymous does is gives me a framework and a program and a solution, a program of action that I can do and apply to my life when these emotions are getting out of control. But the first thing I need to learn to do is to pause and say, I'm getting tangled up in the spot check inventory and what's going on right now. Okay. The second inventory that I'm going to take is the daily or nightly inventory. Okay. And again, this is where I interweave it with prayer and meditation. We're going to talk about tonight: prayer, meditation, and inventory. I've got a system, a formula that I use every night. A lot of us have those disciplines. Okay. And if I'm going to enjoy any type of happy, contented sobriety whatsoever, okay, I need to really, really investigate this stuff. Like I am not a guy who can do a little bit of AA and stay well. I can't. I've got a bad strain of this disease. Okay. I'm not saying it's worse than yours or anything like that. I'm just saying I have a bad strain of this disease. And in order for me to stay well, I've got to do a lot of work. Okay. But that's, so what? I get to enjoy this incredible, beautiful, miraculous life that I have. And I've never had it so good. Okay. I am blessed beyond my capacity to receive. And Danelle was actually just telling me earlier, she was reading me a quote from Bill Wilson. Most of us can stay well just on the typical 12 steps of AA, but if we really want to turbocharge our spirituality, okay, step 11 is key. Okay, it's key for that. And I think step 12 as well. I've heard it said that we can get sober on the first 11 steps, but we don't really start growing spiritually until we get our first sponsees. Anyway, so then what's the other inventory that we take? There's 3 of them. Okay, so there's the spot check inventory, which is right now, the daily or nightly inventory, which is at night. And what's funny about this is that what we're going to read tonight in the book is actually step 11, but it's what most people will actually consider step 10. Okay, when they're talking about the daily or nightly inventory. Okay, a lot of us, page 86 to 89, we know about when we retire at night or on awakening. We all know that, and we think about that as being, that's our step 10 inventory. It's actually step 11 in the book. That's how interwoven these things are. Okay, so that's the daily or nightly, and we're going to read that tonight. And then Bill says in step 5, sorry, Bill writes in step 10 that most of us do, like he calls it an annual or semi-annual house cleaning. Okay. You'll see at the bottom here, annual or semi-annual house cleaning, which essentially means we do a step 4 and a step 5 once a year. Okay. Now we were at a speaker on Friday night, and that speaker said, I did one set of steps, 30 odd years ago, and I only ever needed to do one set of steps, and that's, don't let anyone tell you different. Okay. And that's his experience. I mean, that's fine. What I know is in step 10, Bill says most of us go in for an annual or semi-annual house cleaning. And if you use the analogy of cleaning house, most of us will do some spot check cleaning in our house, and we do some daily or nightly chores of like maybe making the bed or putting away the laundry or whatever, the daily stuff that we do. But most of us don't wash the windows. We don't wash the windows every day, do we? We wash the windows of our house. How often do we do that? About once a year, okay? Once or twice a year, right, Ben? You wash the windows of your house. And what would happen if you went like 33 years without washing the windows of your house? What would get blocked out? What would get blocked out of your house? The sunlight, man. The sunlight, okay? So I'm a big believer. For me, I do an annual inventory in addition to the spot check and the daily or nightly inventory. Okay, so with that said, let's get into step 11 in the book. Now, Brad is not here, and I'm going to need a reader. Benjamin Collins, would you feel like reading for us again tonight?
Yeah, it's not a problem.
Okay, beautiful. Well, thank you, Ben. Okay, we're going to be at the bottom of page 85. And, the first thing this says here is step 11 suggests prayer and meditation. That's what step 11 says, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. Okay. And I misread that step for a long time, many years, over 10 years, almost 14 years in my life, in my sobriety. I thought it just said sought through prayer to improve our conscious contact with God. Okay. And I didn't really go in for that meditation stuff. To me, that was hippy dippy new age stuff. I'm not really too keen on that meditation nonsense, but some people are, and that's fine for them. And I said, my sponsor said, how's your step 11 going? I said, beautiful, man. Every morning, every night, multiple times throughout the day, on my knees. Yeah, good to go. And he said, okay, well, what about meditation? And I told him what I just told you. I don't really go in for that meditation stuff. And he said, oh, I see. So for you, it's optional. It's sought through prayer and or meditation. I see. You get to make a choice, do you? So anyway, I started to investigate meditation. And what I know, guys, is I don't believe I can stay sober on 11 and a half steps. Okay. I can't stay sober on 11 and a half steps. Okay. And just praying in step 11 is half of the step. And I've learned that. And I can say that now because I practice mindfulness meditation for a minimum of 10 minutes every day. And it's a discipline I've integrated into my life. And so that very first line on page 85, I think says it all. Step 11 suggests prayer and meditation. Okay. It's both. And so we'll talk about that tonight. Ben, back to you.
All right. Step 11 suggests prayer and meditation. We shouldn't be shy on this matter of prayer. Better men than we are using it constantly. It works. If we have the proper attitude and work at it, it would be easy to be vague about this matter, yet we believe we can make some definite and valuable suggestions.
Okay, so we're gonna talk again right now about when we retire at night and then on awakening. These are two pretty famous writings in AA. We hear about them a lot. And in fact, for anyone who's curious about, where do I start with step 10? How do I start, doing this work? One of the things you might want to take a look at is there's actually an app if you go to the app store on your phone, now I'm on an iPhone, I can't say about Android for sure, but if you go to step and just type in step 10 into the okay, just type in step 10 into the app store. What you're going to see here is an app that comes up, and for the nightly inventory, okay, and it just has a series of yes or no questions that you can answer, okay, and this is just a nightly inventory that we can do. Now these questions, first question, it says, was I resentful? Okay, and one of the first things it's going to ask, when we're tired at night, we constructively review our day. Where were we resentful? And it goes on. There's a series of questions that it asks, and those questions are specifically built, or the questions in this app, I want you to know, are taken directly from what we're about to read. Okay, so why don't you read us through this, Ben? And we'll talk about it when you're done.
When we retire at night, we constructively review our day. Where were we resentful, selfish, dishonest, or afraid? Do we owe an apology? Have we kept something to ourselves which should be discussed with another person at once? Were we kind and loving toward all? What could we have done better? Where were we thinking of ourselves most of the time? Or were we thinking of what we could do for others, of what we could pack into the stream of life? But we must be careful not to drift into worry, remorse, or morbid reflection, for that would diminish our usefulness to others. After making our review, we ask God's forgiveness and inquire what corrective measures should be taken.
So I just want to point out again, in the spirit of 10 and 11 being interwoven, okay, the four things, when we talk about we look for four things and we do four things in step 10, those four things we see here again echoed in step 11. Were we resentful, selfish, dishonest, or afraid? Those are the four things, okay? We continue to watch for selfishness, resentment, dishonesty, and fear. When these crop up, we ask God at once to remove them. We talk to someone else about them. We make amends if we've harmed anyone. Then we turn our thoughts to how we can help others. And in this case, it's saying that we want to think about others and ask how we can be useful to others, okay? And we ask what corrective measures should be taken, okay? So in both cases, we're watching for the same four things: selfish, resentful, dishonest, and afraid. Okay. Those are the things that I want to ask when I get tangled up in the moment and I'm feeling poorly in any situation. Ask myself, am I being selfish? Am I feeling resentful right now? Have I done something dishonest? Am I afraid? The answer is usually yes. Am I afraid? And another thing to be mindful of all the time, particularly under selfishness, okay? Little bullet under selfishness that should say self-pity, self-pity, okay? A lot of times when I'm getting tangled up in the day, it's because I'm experiencing self-pity, okay? So this is what we're doing, okay? And this is kind of the nightly inventory. So as I said, that app on the phone, you click on nightly inventory, it says, was I resentful? Yes, and you click forward. Was I dishonest? And you think about it, you write, yes or no, whatever the answer might be. Then you can make little notes on it. Now, you may say to me, well, what kind of a dumb thing is that? Like, we're going to use an app, Kevin, for our step 10, and I understand that there are people who, God bless them, they have their leather bound book and they have their pen, their feather quill pen and their little inkwell, and every night, disciplined, they sit and they etch their inventory to themselves every night, and God bless them. I aspire to do that, but it's never going to happen. Okay, and I know that because I've tried and I've started. Man, you go to Chapters and you buy the nice book and you get the pen and like, oh baby, we are going to nightly inventory like crazy, okay? And I start, and day number 1, how is it? Day number 1, it's great, great. Day number 2, I forget completely. But day number 3, I'm going to start again, okay? And then day number 3, and it trails off, and like a week from now, it falls short, and then I'm beating myself up. Here's the beauty for me of having it on the phone, man, is that at night, what am I doing? I might be checking emails, watching, YouTube videos, listening to a speaker tape, whatever. I've got the phone in my hand already. And so it's so easy for me just to flip over. Am I saying it's the most thorough inventory I've ever done when I hit these little buttons in the app? No, it's not the most thorough inventory, but it's consistent. Okay. And I think that consistency in discipline wins the day in AA all the time, man. Okay. Consistently taking inventory. So that's one of the great values of just having it available in the phone. So I highly recommend what we just read. Step 10, if you just go to the App Store, step 10, it's right there. It's right there. And I've used it for a long time. And I know a lot of my sponsees and other people I know use it and really enjoy it. Okay, so now we're going to read On Awakening. And one of the things that I want to say about this, guys, is, a lot of people will have a discipline like, oh, I'm going to read On Awakening every morning, every night for the next 30 days. I'm going to read it, okay? And it's one thing to read it. I mean, it's great. It's always good. This book is a spiritual vortex. And if I'm sitting with this book open in front of me, God is going to pour out of the pages every time, no matter what. It's always a good thing to have this book open in front of me. With that said, reading 86 to 89 is one thing. Doing what 86 and 89 ask me to do and taking the actions that it indicates is something different. So you'll see what I mean when we start reading On Awakening. It's one thing to read this, it's another to actually stop and actually do what it asks me to do. So back to you, Ben.
On awakening, let us think about the 24 hours ahead. We consider our plans for the day. Before we begin, we ask God to direct our thinking, especially asking that it be divorced from self-pity, dishonest, or self-seeking motives. Under these conditions, we can employ our mental faculties with assurance, for after all, God gave us brains to use. Our thought life will be placed on a much higher plane when our thinking is cleared of wrong motives.
One of the things that we start to learn from step 11 and from the practice of meditation is that we learn that there is a level of consciousness above our thinking mind. I learned that my mind and my thought life is not always real. And a lot of times the thoughts that get spinning around in the disaster factory here are not real. And the fear that gets created in here. My sponsor used to say, Kevin, the worst things in my life that I ever lived through never happened. Okay? I'm just creating these things in my mind. And we learn to be able to observe our thought life. I didn't know I had a thought life. I just had thoughts and they felt real to me and they must be real. I'm feeling them. It's got to be real. Wrong. Feelings are not reality. Okay? And thinking is not reality. One of the benefits of meditation and practicing this way of life is we start to be able to sort out the nonsense from reality and see the reality of our thought life. So that's what it's talking about here. We're asking God to remove from our thinking. We ask God to direct our thinking. Do you know how powerful that line is alone? God, direct my thinking. Holy Moses. Can you imagine getting your mind hooked up to the power of God and divorcing my thinking from selfish, self-seeking, self-pitying motives? Now I'm on a higher level. And it doesn't happen through my talent, and it doesn't happen through my skill and ability. It happens because we invite the power into our lives to direct our thinking. And now we're on that new level where I can start to observe our thinking mind because I'm living in this place up here, this consciousness above my thinking mind that we like to think of as the fourth dimension. And that's what this whole study, that's what we call this study. the fourth dimension study, where we are above this disaster factory. Okay. So I really enjoy having a thought life today. And man, I'm not saying I live there all the time. Okay. I'm not saying I don't get gripped and crippled by fear sometimes, and negative thinking, and we all go through trials and low spots in life, man. And that's when step 12 will save the day. Okay. And then gently guide me back to the practice of step 11. And mindfulness meditation has had a huge impact on my thinking, and on my thought life. Okay, back to you, Ben.
In thinking about our day, we may face indecision. We may not be able to determine which course to take. Here we ask God for inspiration, an intuitive thought, or a decision. We relax and take it easy. We don't struggle. We are often surprised how the right answers come after we have tried this for a while. What used to be the hunch or the occasional inspiration gradually becomes a working part of the mind. Being still inexperienced and having just made conscious contact with God, it is not probable that we are going to be inspired at all times. We might pay for this presumption in all sorts of absurd actions and ideas. Nevertheless, we find that our thinking will, as time passes, be more and more on the plane of inspiration. We come to rely upon it.
Yes, we come to rely upon our thinking being on this plane of inspiration, but we also rely on our sponsors. Okay? Because a lot of times these incredible, masterful, intuitive, spiritual thoughts that I have, okay, are actually a bunch of mumbo jumbo. And sometimes, thank God, if I share those thoughts with a sponsor, he can help me sort out reality from what is just self-will. Okay. I can make anything look like God's will, given the right rationalization and justification on my own, in my own mind. I can convince myself that anything, Clancy talked about one time when he was newly sober, he had an intuitive thought, and he knew it was, God's will for him to punch his boss in the face and quit his job. Okay. Well, thy will be done, Father, so okay, I can convince myself that anything is God's will on my own. And that's the danger of solitary self-appraisal. Solitary self-appraisal is insufficient. And what Bill says in step 5 in the 12 and 12 is that even the most spiritually minded men will, and women for that matter, will, yes, we rely on this plane of inspiration, but we also rely on the prudent and patient direction of a sponsor in whom we trust. Okay. Ben, back to you.
We usually conclude the period of meditation with the prayer that we be shown all through the day what our next step is to be, that we be given whatever we need to take care of such problems. We ask specifically for freedom from self-will and are careful to make no request for ourselves only. We may ask for ourselves, however, if others will be helped. We are careful never to pray for our own selfish ends. Many of us have wasted a lot of time doing that, and it doesn't work. You can easily see why. If circumstances warrant, we ask our wives or friends to join us in morning meditation. If we belong to a religious denomination which requires a definite morning devotion, we attend to that also. If not members of religious bodies, we sometimes select and memorize a few set prayers which emphasize the principles we have been discussing. There are many helpful books also. Suggestions about these may be obtained from one's priest, minister, or rabbi. Be quick to see where religious people are right. Make use of what they offer.
Okay, guys. You got a highlighter, you got a pen, whatever it is, to see where religious people are right and make use of what they have to offer. Okay. One of the more important lines in our entire book, man. Okay. Particularly once we get to step 11 level. Okay. I want to keep an open mind and an open heart to anything and everything that may be coming my way. All right. And so even tonight, brothers and sisters, you're going to hear me talk about some stuff that's from Jesus Christ and Christianity. You're going to hear me talk about some stuff from Islam and Muslim practice. You'll hear me talk about tonight in particular. You're going to hear me talk about Buddhism. Okay. I love talking about Judaism. I take it all, man. Okay. And why? Well, look, when I was drinking, I was not selective. When I was drinking, I didn't say like, no, 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 just vodka for me. No whiskey, no beer. No, man. I took it all. And all those other, dry goods that we take. I was never discerning. I've never limited myself to one and one only. I want it all. Okay. I wanted the biggest buzz possible. And so, yeah, and I need to keep an open mind. There's so much that I can learn that has had such a meaningful impact on my spirituality and my understanding of God and my understanding of humanity and my understanding of you and my understanding of AA from taking from Christianity and Judaism, Buddhism, Islam, Hindu. You guys have heard me say before, there's a Hindu belief that people who are closest to death are also the people who are closest to God. And I think that has everything to do with AA, man. Okay, when we are closest to death, on death's door, we get that moment of grace that brings us into AA. And that, I love that Hindu saying, okay? Surrender. Surrender. When I love talking about Islam, the word Islam, when translated into English, translates directly as the word surrender. Okay? Surrender. They named their whole religion surrender. That's the name. What religion do you practice? I practice surrender. Like, yeah, me too. Awesome. Okay? What are they surrendering to? Vodka and cocaine? No. They're surrendering to the power of God. That's what they surrender to. Okay? And I'm going to talk about that in a minute here when I talk about how we pray. How we pray. And there's one action that we take in prayer that I think for me has been immeasurably important. And I'll share it with you guys in a moment. Ben, will you read us out to the end of the chapter?
Yes, sir. As we go through the day, we pause when agitated or doubtful and ask for the right thought or action. We constantly remind ourselves we are no longer running the show, humbly saying to ourselves many times each day, "Thy will be done." We are then.
I just want to point one thing out here. It says, as we go through the day, we pause when agitated or doubtful. Okay? Agitated, resentful. When I feel resentful. Doubtful is when I'm afraid. What am I doubting? I'm doubting God's power in my life. I'm not trusting God. I become fearful. So as we go through the day, when agitated or doubtful, when resentful or afraid, we pause. Isn't that what we just said? Spot check inventory. We pause when I get tangled up, when I'm resentful or afraid, selfish, dishonest, but primarily resentful and afraid are the two culprits. Okay? And we pause and ask God, please give me the right thought, direct my thinking, help me to see the reality of this situation. Okay? Go back to column 4 in resentful. Column 1, who am I resentful at? This driver, this person, this human being, whoever it is, resentful. Why? Go through it. Go to column 4. Where am I to blame? What decisions based on self did I make that put me in this position? Okay? Fear. What am I afraid of? Why am I afraid of it? How is self-reliance failing me? God, please remove my fear. God, please remove my fear of this situation and direct my attention towards what you would have me be. What would God have us be? Love and service, baby. Love and service. Go get my butt to work and go help someone else. Go think about how I can help someone else and be useful to someone else. And immediately I stopped thinking about myself and suddenly I don't even remember what my fear was. Okay? Because I'm not thinking about myself. Self-centered fear is the chief activator of my defects. Okay? So When agitated or pause, when agitated or doubtful, we pause and ask for the right thought or action. Awesome. Thank you, Ben. Back to you. Sorry, buddy.
All right. We are then in much less danger of excitement, fear, anger, worry, self-pity, or foolish decisions. We become much more efficient. We do not tire so easily, for we are not burning up energy foolishly as we did when we were trying to arrange life to suit ourselves. It works. It really does. We alcoholics are undisciplined, so we let God discipline us in the simple way we have just outlined. But this is not all. There is action and more action. Faith without works is dead. The next chapter is entirely devoted to step 12.
Okay, and so speaking of religion, that line, faith without works is dead, is actually taken right from the Bible. So don't let that freak you out, okay? But it's just an example of Bill being quick to see where religious people are right and making use of what they have to offer. Faith without works is dead, okay? Or as my first sponsor loved to say, because he was always about, reframing things, faith with works is alive, okay? And what does that mean? It means I have faith, but I'm also taking action in AA. Okay, I'm taking direction. I'm taking action. Okay, I'm putting effort into aligning my will with God's will and getting busy in the program of action. Faith with works is alive. Okay, so you'll see here now. I'm sharing step 11 in the 12 and 12. So this is on page 96. Strongly suggest you guys give this a read. But what I wanted to share with you guys is right here. This is what I was talking about. Okay, there is a direct linkage among self-examination, which is inventory. Okay, self-examination is inventory, meditation, and prayer. Taken separately, these practices can bring much relief and benefit. But when they are logically and related and interwoven, the result is an unshakable foundation for life. Okay, and that's man, that's what I need. That's what I've always wanted. That's what I want to base my life on, is this unshakable foundation for life. Okay. And so I'm going to stop there and I'm going to share now. Here. When I start sponsoring someone, before we even do step 2, one of the first directions I'm going to give them is prayer. Okay. Now you may say to me, well, wait a minute, they're not on step 11 yet. It's like, yeah, I know we're not on step 11. We haven't even done step 2 yet. It doesn't matter. Alcoholics Anonymous is a place where we pray whether we believe or not. Okay. Whether we believe or not, that comes later. That's secondary. Okay. We take the action of prayer. I can pray my way into faith. Okay. So the simple direction that I give my sponsees is, in the morning, I want you to ask for help. That's it. God, please help me stay sober today. In the morning, ask for help. At night, say thank you. God, thank you for my sobriety. Okay. Now, they may have a spiritual life. They may have a religious practice, whatever it is. But and depending on the sponsee, I may actually ask them to put that on the shelf for the near term and just keep it this simple. In the morning, God, help me stay sober. At night, God, thank you for my sobriety. Now, you'll see I wrote there, on my knees. Okay. And I don't want to get into this in a major way, but speaking of the world's religions, okay, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism, I mean, they don't agree on a lot of things, but there is one thing that they all agree on, and that is they get their body in a physical position of humility when they talk to God, all of them, okay? And I discovered God in a place called 5 North. My first experience of the consciousness of the presence of God in my life happened in a place called 5 North, which is the psychiatric ward in the Medicine Regional Hospital, where I had been admitted, and they kept me for a long time. And it was a guy in AA named Thor who actually asked me to start thinking about praying on my knees. And I had nothing to lose at that point. And so I did. And I took that action. And I will recommend to anyone, if you have not had the experience in step 11 that you have heard other people talking about, if you have not felt the connection to God, try praying on your knees. Okay. And the joke that I make is, obviously I've never had any problem getting down on my knees on hangover mornings to puke in a toilet. So why would I have any problem getting down on my knees to talk to the power that's going to save my life? Okay. If God doesn't take me to my knees, alcoholism will. All right. So praying on my knees, I think, is a key action, and something that I strongly encourage my sponsees to consider. It's a very strong suggestion that I make, to at least try it. Just try it. And I have found and felt a profound difference in my life. And I wouldn't do without it, man. I wouldn't do without it. Praying on my knees is really a very important part of my life, an important part of my spirituality. So step 11, I'm not sharing this now. I'm going to share this. Step 11 in the 12 and 12 has a prayer on page 99. We're not going to read the whole prayer because I want to get through some other stuff, but we call it the step 11 prayer. What it really is the St. Francis of Assisi prayer. We've kind of taken it for our own purposes. It's on page 99, which is pretty easy to remember, but we're going to see it right here. Okay. And this prayer right here is what's known as the step 11 prayer. It's not the step 11 prayer. It's the St. Francis of Assisi prayer. Okay. It's a prayer written by a guy named St. Francis of Assisi, who was there's a great story about him and how he came to sainthood and so on, that we can share another time. But what I really want to talk about here, and one of the prime understandings for me and things that really changed my life, really, it changed my character, is this line here: Lord, grant that I may seek to comfort rather than to be comforted. This right here. To understand rather than to be understood. Because I'll tell you what, man, my battle cry as an alcoholic was, you don't understand me. You don't understand me. You don't understand what I've been through. You don't understand what I'm going through. And never once did it occur to me to seek to understand others as opposed to trying to be understood by others. And that has always had a very profound impact on me and my understanding of life and my relationship with others, and who I want to be and how I want to interact with people in the world. When I seek to understand you first, as opposed to being understood by you, why don't you understand me? Okay. I mean it, man. That was my battle cry for years. Rather, seeking to understand you and what you're going through is has been pretty transformative for me. Okay, so what we're gonna do, guys, because I want to make sure we end right at 11 o'clock. I'm not gonna try to rush getting through meditation tonight. We'll kick off with meditation next week, and then we'll go through step 12. For right now, I want to finish on one last thing. And it's something that Emmett Fox, if you've never read any Emmett Fox, man, dive into it. Dive deeply into Emmett Fox. Emmett Fox was like the big book before the big book was the big book. Okay. The early members of AA, you can read this in Dr. Bob and the Good Old Timers. There was 3 books that they used. They used the book of James from the Bible. They used 1 Corinthians 13, and then they used Sermon on the Mount. And when they talked about Sermon on the Mount, they're referring to, I mean, there's the Sermon on the Mount in the Bible, of course, but they also read Emmett Fox's Sermon on the Mount and his explanation of the Sermon on the Mount. Another thing that I've learned from Emmett Fox is what he calls scientific prayer. Okay, and this certainly has to do with step 11, and I want to share this. Hey, Ethan, good to see you. I want to share this right now, guys. This is just simple step 11 stuff, but this is a very, very powerful thing. And if you're having a problem in your life, or something that you're confused about or something you're afraid about in your life, I'm going to suggest you give this a try. I think it's a really powerful thing, and then we'll finish up for tonight. So scientific prayer, there's 4 steps to it, okay? And the first step, now, this is different. This is deep, man. Think about God. So rather than asking God to direct our thinking, which is also very powerful, we think about God, okay? And so what does that mean? We think about God. Well, I mean, Emmett Fox describes the 7 main aspects of God as God is love, life, truth, intelligence, soul, principle, and omnipotence. You can think about that. But I love just to think about, the sunrise or mountains or little happy, healthy children laughing or a little puppy or whatever. If that isn't God, in those moments, I don't know what is. We think about God for a minute, though. That's number 1. Think about God. I elevate my thinking to a higher level, that level of consciousness above the trappings of my insane mind for a moment. I think about God. Then number 2, we claim what we want. Okay? And what's key, and actually I should write this in there. I forgot this. We claim what we want, but what we claim has to help others. Okay? So I may even claim, I want my business to be a success. Okay? So that I can be helpful to my clients and helpful to the people that work for me, and they can support their families and their children, and they can have great, beautiful lives. And I can show my sponsees about the success that I'm having through God's grace and my work or whatever it is. Okay. But we claim what we want. If it's a health situation, okay, I'm claiming that I'm going to get through this and I'm going to be okay with a limited amount of suffering so that I can go and continue to carry your message, God, or whatever it is. But we think about God, then we claim what we want, and what we want has to help other people. And then number 3, and this is where it all comes together, man. This is so powerful. We thank God as though what we have claimed has already happened. It's already happened. And we immerse ourselves in feeling as though it has already happened. So I might think about, myself, project myself 2 or 3 years in the future and what it would feel like if this thing that I've claimed has already happened. Okay. And I'm already enjoying what that feels like. Okay. And what the feeling and the emotions of this thing that I've claimed happening to me might feel like in that moment. Okay. And then I simply release that feeling into the universe. Okay. And that's what we call scientific prayer. And it's very powerful. And if you have any type of situation that is indicated where you really want to dial in God's help, as opposed to just saying, God, help me in this situation, this is a very definitive and directed way to do it. We think about God, we claim what it is that we want, knowing that what we want must help others. Then we thank God as though what we have claimed has already happened, and we immerse ourselves in feeling the way that we would feel if this thing had already happened. And we feel gratitude in our hearts for the fact that God has already given us this gift that we are claiming, and then we just release that into the universe. Okay? So scientific prayer, I've tried it myself on many things. I know other people have scientific prayed about me, about certain things, and miraculous things have happened. It's an incredible thing. It's an incredible way of life. And step 11 is a discipline, a daily devotion, logically interwoven prayer, meditation, and inventory every night. And I really suggest you all start to integrate those disciplines into your life. And I know that you will richly, richly receive the benefits of an unshakable foundation for life. Okay, that's it for tonight, guys. I love you all. Don't run away. Don't drop off the call, because as we always do, we're going to go around the room and everyone's going to say hello, and just a quick hello and let us know where you're from.